In June of 2004, I found out that I was pregnant with twins. It was quite a surprise. It was my second pregnancy, and it didn't take long to find out that they were identical twins sharing a placenta. And because of that shared placenta, they had what's called twin-to-twin transfusion syndrome. I had to go on a modified bed rest. I spent most of my days lying on my side, eating a high-protein diet and just taking it easy to try and help the smaller twin, who's kind of like a blood donor, grow as best as he could during the pregnancy. On December 4th of 2004, I got a call from my doctor saying that I needed to go in for hospitalized bed rest because I had high blood pressure and, they wanted to monitor me. 2 days later, I was the proud mom of 2 beautiful baby boys. Abraham was almost 6 pounds when he was born, and Elliot was only about 3.5 pounds. So they took Elliot to the NICU and kept him there. They said everything was great. He just needed to grow. And they sent Abe right into my hospital room with me, which is what you always expect, and that's what you always want. This is Abe with his big brother Benjamin. The day after the babies were born, I started to cough. And when I coughed, I was coughing out a clear fluid, and they said that that's what you expect after bed rest because your body has been just kind of hanging out there and fluid has been collecting in your lungs, and they need to be able to expel all of that out. So everything is perfectly normal. 2 days later, Abe and I went home. Well, Elliot had a couple of more days yet in the NICU. Actually, he stayed there for 10 days. I continued to cough that whole time, and I just believed that it was my lungs trying to clear out all of that fluid. But on December 16th, Elliot came home and Abe was home, and we were the happiest family in the world. We had the best Christmas gift anybody could ask for. We had 2 brand new, beautiful, healthy boys. My 2-year-old son was happy and healthy, and we felt like we were on top of the world. What more could a mom and dad ask for? On Christmas Eve morning, I coughed so much that I got sick. And at that point, I looked over at my husband and I said, something's not right. We have to go back in. So I took myself to urgent care that morning and let them know what was going on. But of course, I never coughed while I was there. They did a chest x-ray and his diagnosis was asthma. And I said, no, this isn't asthma because I know what asthma feels like and this isn't it. But he said, here's your antibiotic and to home you go. A couple of days later, a county health nurse came to the house, and her job was just to check up on the babies, measure them, weigh them, see how everything was going, make sure mom and dad are, taking care of them. And while she was there, I went into a coughing jag, and she looked up at me and she asked about pertussis or whooping cough. She's the first person who ever mentioned that to me. And she said, you got to take the babies in, because at that point, Abe had started to cough a little bit, just a little cough here and there. So I did. I took him up and I told them that Abe was coughing. Elliot hadn't coughed at all, but the doctor told me that day, just don't worry about it, Mom. Babies cough. This is nothing. It's no big deal. Just relax. Thinking it was just that new mom jitter in me. So we did. We went home. And on New Year's Eve, my sister came up to be with us for the weekend, and my mother-in-law came over. I was getting ready for supper, and while my mother-in-law was holding Abe, she said that his cough, when he coughed, his lips turned blue. So I called the nurse line, and they told me to get him up to the emergency room as soon as possible, and so I did. And when we were at the emergency room, I brought up whooping cough again, and the doctor said, no, this isn't a whooping cough. This is just a little baby cough, but we don't like how low his blood oxygen levels are, so he's going to be admitted. And I insisted. That night, I just insisted that they do a swab for pertussis. And luckily, the testing lab for analyzing the samples is right here in Wisconsin. It's pretty local, but because of the holiday weekend, it took several days for the tests to come back. And when they came back, of course, they were positive for pertussis. My whole family was put onto a 5-day course of Zithromax and we were quarantined, so we weren't able to go and visit him during that time. I called up my mother-in-law and I called up my sisters-in-law and I asked them to please go up and, take care of Abe for me while I couldn't be there, because somebody has to be there that loves him. Somebody needs to, hold him and feed him and love him and change him and do all of those things. And so they did. And every day after they make their visit, they'd call and they'd let me know what they did. If it was feeding him or just holding him or watching him sleep or whatever it was. And by the time that my husband and I were able to go back up and visit, he was in a pretty clear decline. When he would cough, there would be secretions that were just so thick they had to suction it out. And he'd turn blue or he'd turn purple, or it got to be, in not too long a time, he was turning almost black. He was so dark with every coughing jay. And he was so weak he couldn't eat. And they were doing the best that they could for him. And he was in an isolation room in the NICU. So the nurses there were fantastic. I could call anytime, day or night, to get checkups on him, because I was always trying to balance that mom with a newborn in the hospital and mom with a newborn at home. On the early morning of January 11th, 2005, we got a call from the hospital to let us know that they were going to need to put Abe on a ventilator. And I asked the doctor when he called, I said, is he ever going to come back off? And he said, well, of course, that's our hope. But I just couldn't sleep. I had this awful feeling, and about 2 hours later, we got a call, and it was the head of the NICU calling. And he said, Mr. and Mrs. Huber, you need to get up here. We don't think Abe's going to make it. So I called our pastor, and my husband called his mom, see if she would come over and take care of the kids. And, you get that phone call and you just can't wait. So then we called our neighbor and asked her to come over, and we headed up. And it was complete silence the whole trip. When we got up into the NICU, our pastor was there waiting for us. And we said a prayer. And then he asked about baptizing. We said, of course. And so there was a bottle of sterile water there in his room that Pastor Peter baptized him with. And about 5 minutes later, he was gone. When we got the autopsy back, it confirmed that he had died of sepsis caused by bacterial pneumonia from pertussis. And the worst part is, I'm pretty sure he got it from me. I don't know where I picked it up from. I don't know anybody else who had whooping cough. I was never tested, but I'm certain that I had it and I gave it to my baby. And it's nobody's fault, because it's so hard to diagnose. It looks like a cold. It looks like asthma. It looks like all of these things. And when you're the first one in an area to get it, who's looking? But there are two things that really hurt still to this day. And one of them is that now here we are in 2012, and there's another huge pertussis outbreak, and babies have died yet again. Even though in the fall of 2005, an adult booster vaccine was made available. I was vaccinated from for pertussis as a child, and it wore off. The immunity wore off, but I was still immune for that amount of time. And now there's an adult vaccine, and parents and other people in the community are deciding not to get it. And it just makes me so angry. The recommendation is for parents and those around small children to be vaccinated. But like I said, I don't know where I got it from. And so I would love to see people everywhere getting vaccinated. We all go shopping. We all go to the doctor's office. We go to church. We go into public places, and we never know who we're going to meet there. Is there going to be a baby there? Is there going to be a new mother there? You don't know. So please vaccinate. The one regret that I don't know if I'll ever get over is that in the time that Abe and Elliot were both at home, we never did take a family picture. So the only family picture I have is from the day of Abraham's funeral. And I'll never be able to get that back. So please, vaccinate. It's easy. You don't even have to go to the doctor. You can go to your local Walgreens or CVS pharmacy or whatever and just ask for the vaccine. Not only are you protecting your family, but you'll be protecting families everywhere. Babies you'll never ever see or ever know. You might just be saving their life.